So good morning, everyone. It's officially 9:05, and I think that we have quite a full room right now. So I think we should be able to kick off this roundtable discussion on climate and disaster risk finance and insurance. I am quite honored that you have chosen to spend this time with us, and I hope that we have a very engaging and fruitful discussion. To start off with, I just want to do a quick round of introductions. And as well, Christian will be placing the attendance sheet in the Zoom chat he just did, where you get to fill in your name and the organization that you're representing so that we can know who's in the room. So we're just going to start off. Just say your name, the organization you represent, and your favorite color. All right, so my name is Karen Phillip. I represent CPDC, which is Caribbean Development Policy Development Center. I think I just mixed that up. And my favorite color is fuchsia.
Hi, good morning. My name is Dania Howell. I'm representing the Caribbean Youth Environmental Network, and my favorite color is purple.
Thank you, Tanya. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, same to you.
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Sonia Peter. I'm the Executive Director of the Biocultural Education and Research Program. And wrapped up in my work, I have to say my favorite color is green.
Ah, that's nice. Nice to meet you, Sonia.
Hello, my name is Sophia Lisk, but you will see me on the participants list on the Xavier list. I'm representing Bangor, and my favorite color is green.
Two greens, okay.
Hi, good morning. My name is Troy Hamlin, and I'm representing Empower Youth International. I'm the finance director, and my favorite color is blue.
Ah, okay, great.
Hi, good morning. My name is Arabelle James Anglese. I'm the National Coordinator of Caribbean Youth Environment Network, and my favorite color is red.
Okay. Who's next?
Hi, good morning. My name is Alicia Salmon. I'm representing CMC, and my favorite color is purple.
Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing a little trend here. Who's next?
Hi, my name is Paulette Paris. I will be representing the National Organization of Women, and also to add, my favorite color is purple.
Okay, thanks.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Phillips. I'm here with the Munich Climate Insurance Initiative, and my favorite color is blue.
We have blues, we have purples, and we have greens, okay?
Good morning. My name is Monica Messino. I'm representing Caribbean Institute of Certified Management Consultants, and my favorite color is green. I think we're all May babies, maybe.
Maybe.
Good morning. My name is Ron Goodridge. I'm representing the Ministry of Environment and National Beautification, and my favorite color is green.
So I didn't hear your favorite color.
My favorite color is green.
Okay, that's another green.
Yes, I'm not a blue person.
Who's next?
Name is Al Walcott, representing Barbados Water Authority in the area of the emergency planning and security. Favorite color is blue.
Okay.
Well, I'll go next. Good morning, everyone. My name is Richard Jones. I am officer in charge at the Caribbean Policy Development Center, which is presently hosting this meeting this morning. Let me also thank you all for attending. And I hope, as Karen said, we do have a good and interactive session on what we believe is a very important issue for us in the region that is faced annually, really, by natural disasters in the form of hurricanes. And obviously, we have some other issues with drought and so forth right now. I won't be very long. So let me thank you again for attending, and I hope you all fully participate. Please feel free to speak, ask any questions, voice your opinions, because they all contribute, I think, to our overall learning. My favorite color, I know, is somewhere between purple and green. So I will say purple for now. Have a good morning, everyone.
Okay. We seem to have quite a green team leading on the favorite colors. Did we get everyone, or do we still have persons? I don't think I heard Mr. Burke as yet. And then I want to say Victoria for last, so that she could introduce as Jennifer said, there's also MCII on this call. So I'll allow her to go last and give a little bit about who MCI is.
Okay, good morning. I think I can go next.
Okay.
My name is Ona Harewood. I am the Principal Legal Counsel at the Barbados Water Authority. As far as favorite colors go, I don't really have a favorite color. I think I'm a mood person. So some days I'm a blue person, some days I might be a purple person, some days I might be a yellow or red person.
Yeah, I said fuchsia, but I have quite a few.
Yeah. Good morning, I'm Marcia Brandon. I'm the Secretary General. My favorite color, I have several, but my favorite one I think is red. Let me rephrase that. My favorite color is red, I don't think.
Okay. So we have one red, I think. No, it was two reds I think we have so far. All right, so I believe that Mr. Burke has unmuted his mic.
Yes, good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Reggie Burke. I am the Executive Coordinator of the Caribbean Youth Environment Network. Favorite color is blue.
Okay, that's good. So I think we covered everyone. Is anyone else missing? Okay, so I'm just going to let Victoria introduce herself and just a little bit about MCII. And then I will speak a little bit more about CPDC, and then we'll get right into it.
Okay, great. Thank you, Karen. And hello, everyone. My name is Victoria Seifert. Just as my colleague Jennifer Phillips and as Karen also explained, I'm with the Munich Climate Insurance Initiative, MCII. My favorite color, I can't quite decide, something between blue, green, and gray, I guess. And coming to MCII. So MCII is a charitable organization which has been founded in 2005 in Munich, which is how the Munich comes into our name. And it has been founded by representatives of civil society, academia, and the private sector, or basically Allianz and Munich Re on the side of the insurers, German Watch on the side of CSOs, as well as the United Nations University for Environment and Human Security on the side of academia. And we are hosted by the United Nations University on Environment and Human Security, and they're located in Bonn. And what we are focusing on in our work is the integrated development of financial protection mechanisms to protect vulnerable and low-income population segments financially from disasters. And the approach that we are taking in that context is to not only focus on product development, but also focus on the environments that need to be built around that in order to make insurance an effective risk financing instrument for those people it is supposed to serve. And the way that MCI is set up is sort of a tripartite structure, if you want so. We have a team working on research, especially when it comes to the assessment of climate risk and the analytics behind determining adaptation options, risk reduction options, and the space for financial risk instruments such as insurance. We have another team, which is the team that Jennifer is with, which is working very much on implementation, which focuses on product development on the one end, but also on the implementation in country. And then we have a third team, which is the team that I'm with, which is the policy, sort of policy and public partnerships team. And in that context, I am working on and with the InsuResilience Global Partnership, which is also a partnership on financing, a global one that Karen will talk a bit more about later, and which is also sort of the context, or one of the contexts within which this project that CPDC is implementing together with us is moving. Karen, if you want me to add anything else, please feel free to.
So I think that was a great overview. So as you said, that MCI is working with the Caribbean Policy Development Center, and we are a regional NGO that has been in existence for 29 years, and we have members and partners from Belize straight down to Suriname, and we work on 4 main program areas: trade, governance, capacity building, and sustainable development. And this project kind of fits in between capacity building and sustainable development. But before we jump into the presentation, I have a quick poll that I just want you all to take for me. It should pop up now on your screens. It's only 4 questions. Don't be shy. Has everyone seen questions or?
Yes, I saw them.
Okay. I think just one person doesn't
Yes,
have.
completed.
Okay. All right. Okay, so let's see what we have here. We have that I'm aware of the climate insurance schemes available in the Caribbean, and 60% said that they are aware, while 40% said that they weren't aware. 93% agree that the frequency of natural disasters has increased. Similarly, well, the majority has again agreed that my country has suffered great economic loss due to climate events, and 100% believes that my country should have a proactive approach to planning the climate and disaster events. So that is good that we believe that our country should have a proactive approach. And we're going to learn a bit more about these approaches that our countries could take, and as well what we could do in preparing for these disasters. All right. So the overview of it is that climate disaster risk finance and insurance has two main aims, two main goals: proactive planning and to build the resilience of the countries and the regions who partake in it. And it's happening under the framework of the InsuResilience Global Partnership, which is a multi-stakeholder partnership that brings together representatives from the G20 and the V20 countries, civil society, private sector, and academia. It works to increase the access to these financing and insurance solutions to up to 500 million people. And it takes a principled and a gender-sensitive approach to its work. And as part of this project, CPDC is working in Barbados. We're having the first kickoff meeting today, and then we will be in Antigua tomorrow, and then Grenada on Thursday. So what are the impacts of these natural disasters that we are experiencing in our region? So we have earthquakes. Last night we got the memo that Kickum Jenny has decided to kick up again, and that we're expecting more earthquakes in the region now. Hurricane, excessive rainfall, and the damages to the fisheries as well. These changes have been tied to some human influence, but it's also natural disasters. So in our region, I try to track some of the major ones that happened in recent time. So we had Hurricane Ivan, which was in 2004 in Grenada, that destroyed 90% of homes and cost up to 17 lives, and then 900 million US dollars in financial losses. And then in 2017 in Dominica, almost the same amount of damage. The same thing for Irma as well, which came shortly after. And then in Trinidad, 80% of the country was affected by the excessive rainfall, but surprisingly, there was no death tied to it. And the financial losses are yet to be determined because the state had a lot of resources that they had to put out, even though, yes, they got money from the CRIF. So how do these events impact you? So when we speak about climate change, and that it is a present threat to our future and our sustainability, we have to understand that there are various threats. So when we say that it's not just one thing causing this issue, but there are various ones. Those that are relevant to the climate disaster risk finance insurance are the heavy rainfall and the excessive rain, flooding, heat wave, dry spells and droughts, and the cyclones, hurricanes. Those that are not currently under the context would be the earthquakes, the volcanoes, and the tsunamis. But we do know that in our region, we have a drought that the FOA
just give us 5 minutes. We're having some internet problems. Just let me resolve this shortly.
Sure, thank you.
All right, I'm sorry about that, but I'm gonna take off the video to see if that would help conserve bandwidth. All right. So y'all need to tell me where y'all heard up to though.
You can start right there at the FAO. I believe that's where we last heard.
Okay, thank you. Right. So I was talking about the fact that we are in a drought, especially in Barbados and Antigua, and that the drought is going to affect our livelihoods, and that is something that we need to look at, and because it will affect our food security. And as well, the other part that we would need to look at is the ocean and the fact that climate change is also affecting our fisheries and the way that our animals, our fishes exist. And I was reading a quote from a study that I found that said that the coral reef covers less than 1% of the ocean floor, but are home to approximately 1/4 of all marine species. These once vibrant structures are now signaling their distress in mass bleaching events. The world has lost roughly half its coral reefs in the last 30 years, and over the next 20 years, scientists estimate that 70 to 90% of all coral reef will disappear as a result of warming, acidification, and pollution. So we see that is not a single issue. Every area of our lives are being impacted by this climate and disaster issues, and therefore we need to build our resilience to how to combat this. We found in our research that the losses affect those most in developing countries, and also that we have occurred in 2018 up to US $82 billion in losses and 800 deaths, while in 2019 it was 55 billion. And that's a huge amount of money. And that the fact that in 95% of the death occurs in developing countries, what does that say for our future and our sustainability for the generation to come next? Who is going to be able to work the farms and the foods to take care of us, and then who's going to inherit it after? Right. And at this point, I had another quick poll. To ask you, like, how has this been affecting you? And just a quick reminder, if you have questions so far, you can put them in the chat, and then when we have the question and answer time of we'll take all the questions at that point. And if you haven't filled out the attendance sheet, please don't forget to do so. All right. So for the polls this time, we agree that the change in weather pattern has livelihoods, and that 8% said I have suffered financial losses, while some are neutral on it, and 54% says no, they have not suffered financial losses. And then 62% said that I often prepare for the hurricane season before June. And I think that's very interesting. And I want to hear a little bit more about how do you prepare for the hurricane season a little later on. But right now, when you think about being resilient, what is the first thing that comes to your mind? Monica says survival.
So wait.
Sorry, I didn't hear.
Are we responding live, or are we typing?
Either one. We have two in the chat. So Sophie says being able to pick up the pieces after something negative has occurred.
Okay. Well, I don't know if you're hearing me, but within the context of the work I do, resilience is how we rebound from negative impact. And since I work within the sphere of biodiversity and plant biodiversity, it is how readily we're able to respond based on the strategies we've taken before the disaster comes in.
So the strategies that you take before, that's a good one. So being able to pick up the pieces after survival and being prepared before. One more response and then I'll move on.
For me, it is, I guess I'm more or less like the last contributor. For me, it is building the capacity to be better able to cope with the natural disaster and minimize loss.
Okay, minimize loss. Okay, these are really good answers. So for me, when I thought about resilience, I thought about the Energizer Bunny. I thought about being able to keep going no matter what. So we heard Sonia talk about to anticipate what's going to happen, right? So that we know that the hurricane season is coming every year in June, and we have 6 months to prepare for it. Then we have the absorb, the ability to cope with the impacts of the extreme weather events and absorb the effects of the event. So that comes to like what Monica was saying about the survival of it. And then we have the adapt, right? And the adapt is when what Sophia was saying, the ability to adjust the actual and expected extreme weather events and its effects, and it moderates or avoid the harms or exploit the situation. So according to the ODI, they use a AAA approach: anticipate, absorb, and adapt. And that is exactly what climate disaster risk finance and insurance is trying to help the world and the region right now, the Caribbean, become more resilient. They want us to become little Energizer bunnies. Yeah.
If I may, Karen, I agree with all you said on the slide that's up, anticipate, absorb, adapt. But recently we've been hearing that one of the things that resilience should include is post the disaster is that you build back better.
Yes.
So that anything comes, you're more prepared than you were previously, even with your previous attempts at building resilience, is that you build back better following the disaster. Thanks.
I agree. once my PowerPoint agrees to move with me, right? So we talk about that we have different ways that we're going to try to improve our proactive planning and building the resilience to be able to realize, okay, this didn't work this time, how are we going to do it better, which is the adaptation, right? So contribution to climate risk insurance is the risk assessment. What are the various risks that we have and what it is that needs to be done? And then also protecting, improving the financial liquidity after disaster, reducing the stress of asset sales, increasing food security. And we know how big of food security is an issue for us, and enabling rapid recovery. Promoting increasing savings, increasing productivity and investments in higher return activities, and improving credit worthiness. And then we come to the spurring on of transformation, incentivizing the risk reduction behavior and fostering the prevention-focused risk management. So, okay. So Reggie asked a question. I know I said that we were going to save the question for later, but I'm just letting Reggie know that that question definitely will be covered later when we deal with the actual insurance for individuals. So, but also we need to understand that the insurance is not just the whole thing, but it's part of a solution. And it's part of understanding that we need to have an integrated climate disaster risk management that seeks to prevent retention and transfer and preparedness and response and recovery time. So it's really a five steps that we are working towards, or that MCI is trying to help us work towards reducing our risk in the region. This is going to be touched on a much broader scale a little later on. So how does CDRFI help us? So the extreme weather events are on a rise. We just all agreed to that. And that we realize that our responses are not made in a consistent manner, and therefore there are significant delays. But we also know that we need resources, we need to respond in a timely manner, and we need to have help for the vulnerable groups. And that's how this project came into being. So this project, officially, unofficially, is called the MAPS project. And it is funded by the German government in partnership with CARE Germany, MCII, and German Watch. The project aim is to reduce the negative impact of disaster and climate change on vulnerable groups in select developing countries through the use of poverty-oriented and human rights-based climate and disaster risk measures in the context of InsuResilience Global Partnership. So the InsuResilience Global Partnership seeks to strengthen the resilience of developing countries to protect the lives and the livelihoods of the poor and the vulnerable persons. It's an interactive global stakeholder community that links the needs of the solution, coordinates implementation efforts, shares learning and best practice, and integrates risk financing with broader climate resilience policy and agendas. It seeks to amplify the impact of ongoing initiatives and support the development of new climate disaster risk and finance insurance solutions to help meet the needs of growing needs of developing countries. So out of this project, we are hoping to develop a multi-stakeholder actor partnership at a national and regional level and the global level that will help to promote a development that is gender-based, poverty-oriented, and human rights-based approach to climate finance. So you probably did notice in this room that we have NGOs, we have government, we have some people who are in academia, because we want everyone in the room to talk about this. So in the outputs is to establish the multi-stakeholder partnership in the project country and to facilitate an exchange within the project countries for the InsuResilience partnership level, positions and suggestions about the project to ensure that the policymakers hear us who are on the ground, and to increase the capacity of CSOs, civil society partners, to have concrete political activities on the regional and national level. So this is the heart of CPDC, putting people at the center of a Caribbean sustainable development. We want to take your voices to the policymakers. So who is implementing this project and where is this project being implemented? So as I said, for the Caribbean, it is CPDC, and we're focusing on Antigua and Bermuda, Barbados, and Grenada. And then we also are in Laos, Madagascar, Malawi, Philippines, Senegal, and Sri Lanka. The project activities look at producing a civil society toolkit, research products, activities and events that seek to influence global and regional policy processes, also exchange meetings and conferences on civil society and beyond, country-level stakeholder meetings, workshops, and community consultations, kind of what we're doing now, and also contribute to the working groups and the governance products. So we're trying to see how we can make this better to suit each region, because we know that all things can't just copy and paste. So who is the target group? The target group are the civil society actors in the priority countries and at the international level, regional and global. The actors, relevant actors, and who would take part in this, as well as the private sector, the university, government, and the indirect would be the entire country, because we're working together to ensure that everyone can benefit from this. Right, so I saw that a lot of people said that they prepare for the hurricane season before June. If I could just get 2 persons or 3 persons to tell me how they prepare for the hurricane season. Yes, Rosanna.
Sorry, guys. That was a mistake. My fingers didn't draw, but sorry to interrupt.
Oh, okay. All right. Thanks for joining us. Okay, go ahead, Danielle.
Hi. Yeah, so every year I ensure that my family knows about the shelters, because they update every year. They change after the shelter assessments are done. So I make sure my family knows what's the closest shelter to us and the second closest, because it's always not, the closest shelters may be full. So I kind of give them a plan B. We do this all before June. We try to make sure our cupboards are stocked, and just to have a general family plan, knowing the emergency numbers, etc., and making sure we have our flashlights. And I mean, we're going through a bit of a drought because I do live in the country. So just ensuring that we always have that adequate amount of water supply.
Okay, thanks. Can I get 1 more or 2 more persons?
I would like to make a little contribution here, although the businesses and nonprofit organizations that I am in are relatively young, but something we realized, and I will put forward, that COVID should be considered as a disaster for the region. We began to strategize early in terms of how we should respond, whether at the business level or the nonprofit level, in terms of rebounding. And I think that continues on with my earlier statement in terms of putting strategies in place. So we began to look at
so how do you prepare for the hurricane season?
This is at a personal level?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I thought it was meant for us in terms of our organizations. At a personal level, we do everything that I think most people try to do, is to make sure that your home is up to grade in terms of if there are any issues that you think may impact. We try to reinforce. We look at issues of food security for the family, issues of water, etc.
Okay, thank you. And Paulette?
Hi, I think for me personally and my family, it's a matter of not only having your food security prepared, but making sure your first aid kits are up to date, your passports are safely put aside. And I know it may seem preemptive, but the idea that any, like a major, like just heavy rainfall, because where I live, we could get a bit of flooding, and then you can't leave. I have to make sure my personal medication is stocked up. So things like that, we try to focus on to make sure like we're all prepared in the event that something happens, we have to leave our homes.
Okay, thank you so much. And in the chat, I just had it. Where did it go? So in the chat, we have that update emergency plan. I ensure I have contact for my family members. I purchase good batteries, water tanks, and solar powered products. I trim the trees around my home, a general cleanup for anything that could be a missile in high winds, and along the other hand, goods, water supply, candles, lamp. I watch the Weather Channel more significantly from June so I can mobilize earliest as possible. I purchase canned goods, ensure lighting and other supplies are restocked, and reinforce the home and that documents are secured. So we see that we have all this preparation for before, and that some of it includes spending money as well. And then some of it in the end, are there cases where we end up spending money at the end as well after the storm has passed? I think that's mostly the case, depending on if anything becomes a missile, we might have some repairs to do to our house, right? So with the disaster risk financing, they are asking us to prepare to understand that financing occurs before and after. So that there's a finance that we need to look at before the event or the hazard, which is the risk reduction, risk transfer, and the forecast-based financing. And then after the event, how do we retain this risk so that it doesn't become bigger, and how do we finance it? So before the event, we have risk reduction, we have budgets. We know that we put money aside to ensure that we can buy the batteries, that we could fill the car, that we could tie down whatever else. On the national scale, they have their bonds, the private-public partnerships, development partners, and the traditional finances. So we see how the way we prepare should be mimicked by the way the nation prepares, and the way the nation prepares, individuals should take preparation themselves as well. So we have risk transfer, we have insurance for public assets, natural resources insurance, and all these other various types of insurance. And then forecast-based finance, which is early action response finance, dispersed based on the forecast of an event. I think this is the only one that does not, we can't see that happening per se in the region as yet. But after the event has happened, the country should be able to have a national emergency disaster contingency fund, the same way that we are always told when we're budgeting that we should have an emergency fund. The reserve fund, the budget reallocation, you realize you can't go on a cruise this year because the hurricane mashed up this part of your house, and you have to use the money to do as such. And then also for the risk finance, we have to look at the other ways in which that we could receive money to help assist with the rebuilding. So they prepared, the World Bank prepared this this graph to show how it normally goes. If we get the money early, we can have a shorter time to do all of these other stuff, right? But then there are other considerations that we need to take note of to ensure that we have the right products, the right issues. So the timeliness, cost of it, how we're going to get it sent out, the risk layering, risk information, and ownership. Right. So at this time, I'm going to put you all into breakout rooms. If you all could just take down these 3 questions. I believe we have, let me see how many people we have in the room. Now we have 25. So I'm going to put you in groups of 5, and I'm going to give you 10 minutes to talk amongst yourselves. What is your work? How does it play a role? How does climate risk play a role in it? And how is climate risk being addressed in your work? And then you'll come back and report. Everyone has the instructions?
Yes, please.
Could you just put back the questions?
Sure.
Thank you very much.
So you all would have gotten the invite to join the breakout rooms.
Sorry, I missed my breakout room, Karen. I missed the invitation.
I'm not sure how to resend. Let me see if I could. Oh, you moved.
That was quick. The short one.
How was that?
Too short.
Too short?
We did not get complete hours either.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
Well,
dear.
then, but now you'll have to report to me, right? And I need a volunteer from each group to give like a short presentation on what is going on in each of the room. But I want group 4 to go first because I did not allow Miss Marcia Brandon a chance to talk about Bango and the great work that it's been doing and the work that she put in to organize this consultation for us today. So we're gonna lead off with breakout room 4.
You're putting me on the spot.
Yes.
No, Bango is extremely happy to have been included by CPDC in this project. For us, we know that it is working on the ground in communities. We know that it is vital for our citizens to understand, and at every level, anytime we're doing anything in our countries, and when we talk about resilience, the important thing is to make sure that our citizens understand what it is, because if we don't understand what it all entails, we'll not be able to act. And I think that is why on many levels, at many times, we do things and people do not act. It's not necessarily because they don't want to act, it is because they really don't fully understand what is happening. And things change so quickly and there's so much information out there. So I think I congratulate CPDC on this and thank you for inviting us to partner. We are the Bango is the local point on the ground, helping CPDC to administer this in Barbados. And we have, I thank the CSOs who are here and our government partners who are here as well, because we can't do this alone. We have to have many partners in many sectors, in all the sectors.
Okay, definitely.
Yes. For us, unfortunately, we didn't get to do everybody, but because I know I saw the small business there, and I saw CMC as well. So far, two of our partners got to just explain what they do, and Dr. Sonia Peter, she spoke about her work in the field of plant biodiversity, and it's connected to education and health. And so for her work is spanning those areas. And how is climate risk, what role is climate risk playing in that is that plants are the natural environment and they're impacted by any natural disaster or most natural disasters that come around. They are trying to mitigate this kind of and build resilience by conserving plant biodiversity. They're looking at collecting seeds, which is a global recovering biodiversity strategy. And for them, that is one of the ways and educating citizens, of course, on how to do this as well, because that's our biggest resilience. We many times overlook our people in the process of this and think that we can actually build resilience with institutions and machines and stuff, but really and truly, the core of every resilience strategy is people. BWA spoke about the water authority being solely responsible for potable water and some elements of sanitation in some areas of the island. And the in-house council spoke about preparing for hurricanes, and they're now looking at all these solar related projects that they can actually build resilience, reduce dependence on fossil fuel, and be able to get a solar farm immediately available after a disaster, which will make sure that people on the island can access water. Now, that's just a synopsis of what was said, so I hope I did justice.
Okay. Thank you very much. So let's move on to breakout room 5 that has Sophia List, who's also a member of Bango, or whoever from group 5 wants to speak. Let me not put Sophia on the spotlight. Someone from group 5 wants to speak, either Arabella, Joshua, Monica, or Sophia.
Well, Monica and myself, we spoke, and our work is mainly service we provide a service, as in we are umbrella organizations that provide support to various other organizations. And to put it all in a nutshell, climate risk does not affect us as the parent, which is the analogy Monica used, I love it, directly, but it does indirectly because it will affect our members. And to address it, we spoke about having a very good communication plan, so that you can get information out to your members, so that you can have members speak amongst themselves, or even if they're persons who are not within the group, who they can share the information with. And so we can know what is affecting them and how best we can help to bring things back to as normal as possible. That's basically in a nutshell, lady. The other members can join in if I have missed out anything.
That was great. You covered everything. Thank you. So we invite the other members to give their input.
Okay, thank you. So we go to breakout room 1. That is Awal, Richard, Troy, and Victoria.
I can report back, and I would ask Richard or any other of the colleagues who were in the room with us to jump in. So we didn't get through all the questions, but we had Richard there, myself, as well as Awal and Troy, and I already presented on what MCI's work has been doing, and we also know a bit more about CPDC. So I'm going to focus on Awal and Troy's work for now. And I would ask Richard to then add. So we had experiences shared from working with you and trying to work with youth to make them put their skills to good use and contribute to society. And that also includes a project which involves farm work and work on farming and for sustainable development. And in that context of the work, Troy reported that obviously climate change is coming with effects that produce negative impacts for farmers, especially when it's considering the availability of water. And as part of the project, they are thinking about how what ways can be found to deal with the impacts that climate change has on farming. And I think there was also a discussion around, for example, using insurance to address those risks, but that came with own pros and cons as we learned. And then we had another colleague there, Awal, who is working on the way that we understood it, working on emergency planning for the disasters, and the continuous of operations in the Caribbean during the hurricane season. And in that context, we can see that climate risk plays a very basically the essential or central role within that work, given that this is what the entire process of work evolves around. And he also highlighted how this is how the planning stage is sort of embedded with the integrated risk management approach, Karen, that you presented on before, and how a plan that's being prepared before the hurricane season is then being put into use for further work. And I would stop here. I think we got quite a good grasp of how climate risk sort of affects the work. I think Alicia dropped off for the breakout room due to connectivity issues. But I would ask Richard or any of the other two colleagues to add in case I missed anything or something should be more clear.
I think you covered it very well, so I don't have anything to add at this time.
Okay, great. So let's hear from breakout room 2. That's Danielle, Rashida, Ron, and Rosanna.
I can't.
Hi.
Sorry, I am actually in this while driving, stopping and driving. I have no choice. So I'm on it, but I'm focused on what you're speaking of. I just wanted, I know Rashid just started to discuss the area that CYEN is involved in, but I would love to get a chance to, we didn't get to go further than that, you know, but I just want to highlight the area for persons with disabilities that I represent. Not only are we vulnerable in a normal environment, but a constant changing environment that is resulting from the climate and disasters resulting from climate change. We are double challenged because we lack access to everything that you guys are discussing, from the insurance aspect right down to the actual disaster that happens. Transportation is an issue, food security is an issue, medical supplies, access, and all of these issues, all these needs are doubled. And during COVID, we even experienced it more because it came out surprisingly, and it was like we had to scramble, you know, with nothing prepared for this type of a disaster. We were focusing all the time, yes, on hurricanes and floods, and yeah, we were preparing awareness programs and communication for the deaf and what to do in an emergency like that. But this type of emergency has really expanded our ideas. Now we are now having to develop plans that we never really thought we would have to put in place. But I can go on in more detail, but I don't want to take up too much time.
Yeah, and that is a really good lens that we need to have in up to use to ensure that we're not only just protecting those who are able, but also those who are further vulnerable, who are on the margins. Thanks a lot for that contribution. Anyone else from that group wants to make a contribution about the work that they're doing?
Yes, Ron from Ministry of Environment. Climate risk plays a very important role in the work that not only this ministry does, but the wider government as well. This ministry would champion or try to get all the other ministries to incorporate some aspects of preparation for the adverse effects of climate change, particularly in the area of adaptation. And we try to get them to, as they prepare their yearly budgets, to mainstream, as we say, climate change considerations into their national planning. In the wider government, you may know that the government of Barbados subscribes to the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility, the CRIF.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And also the Department of Emergency Management would also have some elements of work in their preparedness for the hurricane season and other disasters in Barbados. In the Coastal Zone Management Unit would also would have done a lot of work on the coastal zone of Barbados in terms of addressing the adverse impacts of climate change. So that's about that I will contribute now about what the government is doing. One more thing, you may have heard recently in the news that Barbados has a catastrophe fund, and which is there in times for response to any catastrophe that we may face, to have some finances available to help with the recovery and rehabilitation. Thanks.
Okay, great. Thanks for that feedback. So from breakout room 3, just one person want to present on the work that that group is doing, or the various work that that group is doing. Paulette, as Paris. I think I'll fill stepped out.
You're breaking up.
Oh, hi.
No, I said he was breaking up. I didn't hear what you were saying that time.
Oh, I was asking for a presentation from your group.
I wasn't sure if it said if it are S Paris.
But you're all supposed to be in the same group.
Well, I wasn't.
Oh, okay. Well, could you give the presentation for your group?
Basically, I had to step up for some of the group presentation. The beginning, I was answering a call, right? So the rest will fill in. But basically, as a water utility, we have to watch climate pretty closely, and as an adaptation measure to the long-term climate change, we've basically started the installation of desal plants. You have heard Ms. Paris talk about the fact that we're looking at solar PV and so forth. Actually, that project had its genesis with Ron, come out of work that Ron group had done when we got the information to set up that information to go for that funding. So that was Genesis, the climate and water and energy nexus, right? But we cooperate with CIMH and all regional, which is a regional institution looking at climate change. We sit on the National Climate Change Committee because you know the drought water is a key issue, and the drought will affect water. One of the things that will also impact us from the insurance perspective is that we have a lot of utility lines along the coastal area, both sewage and water and drinking water delivery. So how does an insurance company assess our climate risk in that area, and how we can bring it to their attention that that the risk might not be what they think, so that we can have better interaction with them from a climate risk perspective. But the rest can fill in because they would have heard my format off quite loudly during the thing. So any person else in the group that had air, they feel they can fill in the rest.
Thank you. All right, so we're going to move on to the next session. And at this time, it would be Jennifer Phillips from MCII taking over. So you'll have a break from hearing my voice.
Thank you, Karen. Yeah, so I will be talking a bit about MCII's climate risk adaptation and insurance in the Caribbean project. So this is a project that started back in 2011 and is led by MCII together with our partners CRIF SPC. It's already been mentioned, CRIF is the sovereign risk pool that protects Caribbean governments and Central American governments against extreme weather events, as well as with our partners ILO and Munich Re, one of the largest reinsurers, as well as DHI, who is the modeling firm that created our rain and wind models for the project. And this project was funded by the German government. And basically, if we go to the next slide, what we did is we're working in 5 different Caribbean countries, Jamaica, St. Lucia, Grenada, Trinidad and Tobago, and Belize, to introduce climate risk insurance for individuals and businesses and cooperatives in these countries developing market-based private sector solutions for these different countries. So if we go to the next slide, we basically had 3 different objectives with this project. The first was raising awareness on climate risk insurance, and specifically the type of insurance that CRIF SPC works with and what we work to develop, which is called index-based insurance or parametric insurance. And this is basically a new type of insurance that pays out according to different indices, for example, the amount of rainfall or the amount of wind speed that has occurred, as opposed to traditional insurance forms where you have a specific amount of damage and a loss adjuster comes to your house and then you get a payout. Our type of insurance focuses more on what the actual amount of rainfall or wind speed was and then determines a payout based on that. And basically then what we tried to do is create an index-based parametric insurance product called the Livelihood Protection Policy that was introduced into Jamaica and St. Lucia. And this product could be sold then through local insurance companies to individuals and cooperatives who were interested in this type of insurance. And as part of our work, it's also important for us to measure what the impact of these types of insurance products are on local target groups and how these types of products can actually affect their response and recovery to different types of climate events. And then we want to always make sure that we exchange with other organizations about our experiences to make sure we're constantly learning and trying to improve what we've created. So for those that aren't familiar with the concept, I have here some cutouts from one of our brochures that was used by GK Insurance in Jamaica. And the way this type of insurance works is that if, for example, a hurricane comes through or a large storm hits, we use satellite data to collect the amount of rainfall there was and the wind speed and see if a certain trigger level has been met. Satellite data we use because we now have enough of it that we could create the models to create the products, and because satellite data is collected much more quickly than on the ground forms of data, and it's more reliable in that it's consistent in the way that it's being collected. And so within 24 hours, we can know what the amount of rainfall was or what the wind speed was. And if a trigger level has been met, for example, if there's been 100-mile-per-hour winds in St. Elizabeth in Jamaica, then we will know that a trigger level has been met and that the policyholder gets a payout. And the way this insurance scheme works then is within a 2-week period, the local insurance company sends the payout amount directly into the bank account of the policyholder. So the advantage of this type of insurance as opposed to your traditional property insurance is the fact that it can be paid out so quickly within this 2-week period, sometimes even shorter into 1-week period, and the fact that it's often cheaper than traditional property insurance because the insurer no longer has to pay for a loss adjuster to drive out to people's houses and buildings and businesses to look at the amount of damage. So if we go to the next slide, here we can see a couple of the examples of when this livelihood protection payout policy had payouts. One of the first times was back in 2014 after a trough, and again in 2013, as well as after Tropical Cyclone Matthew in 2016. And there are a couple more events in Jamaica in 2017 and 2018. However, it's important to note that with this type of insurance, the payouts very much do depend on the amount of rainfall there was and the amount of wind speed. And so as we're gathering the lessons learned, we're learning about what are the different levels that people are affected by, because what you're finding is often different groups have different levels of exposure, and this will determine the type of insurance product that they need in the end. So going into the lessons learned that we've been gathering on this, there's been quite a few, and we've been speaking with all of our project partners as well as the UN volunteers from the Caribbean that we're working a lot to raise awareness on this type of insurance in Jamaica and St. Lucia. And basically some of the main points we found out were, firstly, the importance of financial literacy and taking the time to really explain how this type of insurance works. If you're expecting it to work the same as property insurance, where once your house is damaged, you automatically get a payout, then you'll be very unhappy if that's not the case, because the wind speed actually wasn't very high and your tree was just very old and that's why it fell over. And so really it's important to take a lot of time to explain how it works and what they can expect in terms of payouts, and that it's not the type of insurance that would pay out every single year that would make it very expensive, but rather it's for those big events that would be very difficult for people to handle on their own. And with this, we come to the second point about explaining basis risk, which is this risk where you as a farmer or a fisherman or a business owner might experience some damage, even though a trigger level has not been met. And so it's important when we talk about it that people understand this insurance isn't to pay for all of your damage, but rather is to give you some quick financial liquidity after an event so that you can use it to start putting towards your repairs and your recovery efforts so that you can get back on your feet. But it's not the type of insurance product that would match perfectly with the amount of damage that occurs. And the opposite situation can also occur where you don't have any damage after an event and you would still get a payout just because it happened to be a very strong hurricane. So it's very important that we explain this very well to people when introducing it to them. Along with that, we want to work further with developing our parametric models, because as we gather more and more data on what the different weather patterns are, the more accurate we can make a model and the lower the cost of the product should be. So recently in the project, we switched our satellite data to a form that has over 30 years of records, and this will allow for more precise payments based on the actual chances and likelihood of the events occurring at a more accurate amount. And then the fourth point on this slide is the importance of taking into account disaster risk management. If people think that they don't need to prepare anymore now that they have insurance, then they will also be very disappointed, because the amount of your payout is not determined by how much damage you get. And if you end up receiving a lot of damage, you'll still get the same payout as your neighbor with the same policy because you didn't prepare properly. So it's important that people understand that this type of insurance is just one tool that can be used, but it shouldn't be used alone. It has to be used in conjunction with other preparedness and prevention activities. And then if we go to the next slide. Yeah. As we look at the actual products themselves, as the project moves forward in the future, we want to look at creating different types of products through this segmented approach. Our product in Jamaica and St. Lucia was one that protected against wind speed and rainfall. However, you do find in many countries that they also suffer from drought and could use a product that would help them against these longer periods without rainfall. And depending on what your livelihood source is, this will also determine the amount of protection that you need. Some people are only affected by very extreme storms, and some are affected even by very low levels of wind. And so we want to make sure that we develop products that actually meet the level of exposure that these different groups have. Along with that, going along to social protection, it also was very clear to us that there's some groups that just won't be able to afford insurance and that won't be able to invest in this type of protection. And for them, we want to continue to communicate with governments about how this form of insurance could play a huge role in their social protection system for helping those income groups that can't afford solutions to get quickly back on their feet after events, as they're often the groups that are hardest hit by these types of storms. Also, as we move forward, we want to work closer with different distribution channels and seeing how they themselves can benefit from selling and raising awareness on these types of products. It's also important for them to understand how they're working so that they can communicate it properly to their customers, and so that it's easy for customers to access and purchase this type of insurance in locations that are convenient for them, because asking everyone to drive to their nearest local insurance office isn't always an easy solution for many people. And along with that, we want to look into how group policies can be used for the same argument that people driving into the city to go to their insurance office often is very time consuming, and if it's possible to facilitate the payment and collection of premiums through group policies, this could allow people to access the insurance more easily. And then going to the last slide. Here we want to look especially into different partnerships and how we can work with local NGOs and governments to raise awareness on this type of products and what they can and cannot do for different groups. From our perspective, we'll never say that insurance is definitely the solution for everyone. It's really up to the individual to look at how they're exposed and what type of recovery measures they need after an event to decide if insurance is one of the tools that they should be using. And to do this, then we need to be educating people when they're talking about disaster risk management and the steps that they need to take. Also with that, we want to look into creating digital solutions also to facilitate easier payment and payouts among our target populations, as well as creating competition in the market so that there's more available to the individuals than just one product on the market. And lastly, from our perspective, it's important to gather the partner buy-in and have this business case for parametric microinsurance, because this is a product that should be sustainable in insurance companies' long-term portfolio. And we don't want it to be a product that insurance companies would cut if business gets difficult, but rather one that they can really see themselves investing in and developing as time goes on and market needs change. And happy to answer questions about that.
Yes, thank you so much, Jennifer. And yes, we are going into our next session, which is the question, oops, sorry, which is the question and answer section. I know so Reggie had asked a question: does the insurance scheme cover vegetation fires related to drought, as well as crop damage to farmers from high wind events, not hurricanes, flooding, and drought loss?
Mm-hmm. So currently the products that we've had in Jamaica and St. Lucia, they paid out according to rainfall and wind speed. So they didn't cover drought yet, although that's something we want to look into developing. And with that, then the fires also weren't covered. Flooding is a bit of a difficult hazard to cover because of the fact that it's difficult to measure, and whether or not it floods will not only depend on the topography of the country and where you're located, but also about how filled the canals are and whether it's high tide and the canals can empty themselves. So the products we've been working with so far have been ones paying out based on the amount of rainfall and wind speed. And so what we found is, for example, in the cases for St. Lucia, banana farmers particularly received a lot of damage after these storms. And because this damage occurred because of the high wind speeds and the trigger levels were met, they did receive a payout. However, for some farmers, that a certain amount of trees can certainly be affected even before a certain trigger level is met, right? So this type of insurance is more for the bigger storms. However, it's not the type of insurance that would necessarily pay out every time a farmer receives damage after a storm.
Okay. Rosanna asks, if vulnerable persons are struggling to survive and are mostly in lower income groups, don't even live in their own homes, how can they afford this unless it's supported by the government? Are we really considering vulnerable persons?
Yeah, it's a really good point. And it was one of our takeaways too, that when the product was conceptualized, we wanted to protect vulnerable persons, but as you point out, many of them won't be able to afford such products. And so for us, it's really important to talk to governments about the need to cover these certain groups. You do find that there's still quite a lot of middle income groups that also don't have any type of protection against like hurricanes or extreme storms that could invest in these types of products, but we're on the same page with the need for the government to also look into possibly supporting these groups who can't afford market-based mechanisms.
Okay, thank you. I also said that we need further expansion on the micro insurance schemes. Okay, that we're going to have further consultations, and that could be the topic of one that we just have a consultation basically on the micro insurance schemes. The next comment is, we hope to have a discussion for what is needed for vulnerable groups to benefit and what is required, what support is required by the government and the development sector to ensure that most in need can have access. Oh, Richard is saying that his, oh, go ahead, Richard.
Right. I think it is very important from CPDC's perspective that we explore and quite rightly what Rosanna's from the Council for the Disabled, what Rosanna's pointed out, how do we ensure that those most vulnerable have some access to resources? I mean, we talk about real vulnerable persons, the disabled community. We're talking about those in rural, poor communities. We can even speak of, to some degree, small businesses and micro enterprises. How do we support or create an environment where they can also gain access? And I think that needs to be done through some degree of policy advocacy to government and probably even to the development sector in general, to see how we can pilot an initiative that would reduce the cost significantly for those vulnerable groups. So for me, that is part of this process and part of the recommendations and some of the findings and why we need the input from key stakeholders to see what are the thresholds and what are the parameters under which this can work for vulnerable groups, as well as those persons like small businesses who may be able to afford the product that's been created specifically for those in that smaller vulnerable group area.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. And I think it's a great idea when we talk about bringing in the different NGOs, development cooperation groups together for these conversations with governments, knowing how these groups are affected differently than some of the target groups for these insurance products.
Okay, we have two more questions. One is from Ron. Will MCI be expanding this product in other islands? And then Marcia, after the answer, you could go ahead.
Yeah, so yes, it is planned to be extended into other countries. Next, we're looking into going into Trinidad and Tobago. And then, yeah, of course, because of COVID-19, there's been ways, but also to continue with the project countries. And then after that, to continue with CRIF's countries going forward. And CRIF is very invested into the project and they definitely see the scope and need for this. So how quickly it will happen is difficult to say because of COVID-19, but it is the long-term plan.
Okay. Thanks, Bella, for that presentation. I wanted to find out from you, what is the highest premium paid in this? I'm not too sure if I missed it. if you said anything about premiums, but I just wanted to get an idea of what's the highest premium that this group would pay, and also what is the actual process that they go through to get registered in this, or to get the insurance. And then can insurance, or is there a possibility for insurance to be tailor-made, to have tailor-made products for each target group? For example, women, youth. Richard spoke about the micro entrepreneurs, and of course, I also represent Caribbean Center of Excellence for Sustainable Livelihoods. One of our team was here, but he couldn't stay on. And we, of course, as it suggests, livelihoods, we deal with people and their ability to make an income to live. So I wanted to find out from you, what is the highest premium, what's the process, and can these proper products be tailor-made for different target groups?
Yep, those are all great questions. So I can talk about the example from St. Lucia. And basically the way the insurance was sold was in units, and people could purchase up to 10 units. There was this limitation of 10 in order to prevent any type of gambling from taking place. And 1 unit would cost you 100 EC dollars, Eastern Caribbean dollars, which I guess is about 40 US dollars. And then you can buy up to 10 units, each for 100 EC dollars. And that premium would then cost you 1,000 EC dollars. So depending on your risk appetite, you could choose. If you took out all 10 units and the biggest storm hit, like a category 4 or a category 5, then you would get a payout for 10,000 EC dollars. Yeah. And so the process for purchasing the product was one of the big lessons learned that we had, because what it required was to have a registered insurer sell the product in order to ensure that somebody was there to explain how it worked, and to ensure that the person purchasing the product understood what was being sold to them. However, this does create quite a bit of restraint, because then insurers need to invest a lot of money into having their insurers go out to groups and then signing people up one by one, or requiring people to drive to their local insurance office to purchase the product. I think as we go forward, we want to see if there can be different ways of doing this, for example, through the use of group policies that wouldn't require people having to go to the insurance office to sign up, but rather could sign up through their association or organization. And we're looking into how we can do that going forward. And your question on creating these targeted products, this is also something that we've been wanting to develop as we go forward into the new target countries, because you do find that different groups have different needs. But the way it typically works with the insurance companies is that first you introduce one product, and then you see how it does in the market, and then from there you expand into new products. So I do think it will be possible going forward to create these differentiated products, but it does take a bit of time to do so, because the insurer also has to learn how the market is working and what people's needs are, and then based on that, they'll go forward with investing in the development of a new product.
Thank you. That would be an excellent one for Rosanna, for the differently abled as well.
Okay, we have 2 more questions, and then we have to take a quick break and then start back. So Brian Lee Chandler, could you go ahead with your question?
Hi everyone, I just got here to this wonderful discussion. I missed it a lot, so.
You're very low, Brian.
Can you hear me any better? I'm not sure why my volume is so low.
Better now.
Yeah, better now.
Is better?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm the national coordinator for the Coconut 2 project for Barbados, and a lot of focus has been placed on a number of smallholder farmers regarding the coconut industry. And I would like to know if you can have further discussions on this particular type of instrument or project that you're pushing here in the region, to see how we can have an alliance developed with the ITC and CARDI, so we can form some sort of pathway forward so that the smallholder farmers can benefit. I don't know if I can exchange my email with you and have this discussion in a more deeper way. Just let me know. But so far it sounds very good and something that I would like to pursue. See how Barbados can benefit in particular regarding this.
Okay, thank you so much for that. Sonia Peter asks, could financing be obtained for activation or mobilization of capacity in event of disaster?
So insurance financing, if you're referring to the payout after an extreme weather event, so this type of parametric index-based insurance, for example, if you wanted to purchase it for an NGO or for a cooperative, this cooperative could purchase it, right? And the payout should always come within 2 weeks. Hopefully 1 week, 2 weeks though is the limit. And this financing, this payout, insurance payout, could then be used by the group to mobilize activities. Is that answering your question? It would be up to the policy holder though to decide how this insurance payout is used.
Yeah, it does answer in a sense, but I was just looking at it in terms of a tailor-made policy, and I think that that was addressed, because in our case, it wouldn't be a situation of infrastructure mitigation we need, but getting our people out to assess where our damage is and how we can begin to respond.
Yeah, so I can say a bit, I think, I mean, whoever owns the insurance policy can decide how that payout is used, but basically, along with the way that CRIF is working, a lot of governments use the CRIF's payouts to start paying these first response activities, right? And so in the same way, organizations, cooperatives, individuals can use the financing as they see fit.
Great, thank you very much.
Okay, great. I'm gonna close off the question and answer time now. At this time, we are going to take a quick 5-minute break for those who have to just use the bathroom, drink some water, and I hope y'all were paying attention, because when we come back, I have another activity for us. Okay?
Okay, Karen, it's 5 minutes?
Yeah.
All right, okay. From my side.
I'm sorry I got knocked off. What did I miss?
We're taking a 5-minute break.
Okay, all right.
Okay.
Hey, is everyone still here? We back. It looks like we have everyone still. All right, so, okay, so we're gonna jump right in, and it says Jeopardy. We all know the game. And we're just gonna have a quick game of Jeopardy.
OMG, I don't know how to play it.
Can anyone tell Marcia how to play Jeopardy?
You're not alone, Marcia.
If I could say Jeopardy, the answer
How do I know what it would be?
You're presented with the answer, but I think your response has to be in the form of a question. Am I correct?
So I only have 12 questions. And we're gonna start. We're not gonna play on teams. It's just a quick recap of what's been going on. All right, so who wants to go first? See that Monica explained it. I think we should start with Monica. So Monica, pick.
All right, I'll go first so that I can get rid of my embarrassment.
Okay, and this is, sorry, let me see, who's talking, sorry?
Sonia Peter.
Sonia, okay, all right.
All right, so I'll go at the top, impacts of climate events, 100.
Okay. These countries have been identified as water scarce with less than 1,000 freshwater resources per capita. This was in the impacts of climate events section of the presentation.
Yes, and immediately embarrassed. So I'll say Barbados.
Yes.
Antigua.
Yes.
I am out.
Grenada?
No. So the answer is what is, not what are, sorry. Barbados, Antigua, St. Kitts, and Nevis.
Okay. Oh, okay. You did well, Sonny.
Who wants to go next?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, sorry, let's. Right, so Marcia, you want to go next?
Not really, but
Karen, let's do impact of climate events for 300.
Ah, okay.
And anyone can answer.
Yeah. So fill in the blank. Fatalities are in developing countries.
Is that a percentage?
No, it's a word.
Is the word increasing?
It's something about increasing. It's the fact that it's more.
Are higher in developing countries?
Thank you. Yay.
It's what? Sorry, I didn't hear that.
What is
higher?
What?
What did you say? Oh, higher.
Higher.
Ah, okay. Got it.
All right. Let's go. The ocean is experiencing a change which is causing damage to the coral reefs.
What is that, acidic change?
Yeah. Good job.
Oh, nice.
Okay, I see. Sorry for the typos. This extreme weather destroyed 90% of homes in Grenada?
Hurricane?
What is a hurricane?
Which hurricane?
Ivan.
Hurricane Ivan, right.
Not right.
So are we going for the MAPS project or the climate? Let's do the,
Okay.
sorry. The MAPS project is being funded by which European government?
Germany?
Germany.
Yeah.
Is it?
Yeah.
Yes.
Touch it, says the CDN.
This international project is being implemented in how many countries?
7.
7? 7?
10.
Yay!
We were listening.
Yeah. This German NGO strives for a world where vulnerable people can have access to and afford protection against extreme weather.
Oh, come on. MCII?
Yay!
What is MTII? Yeah.
This multi-country program that seeks to strengthen the resilience of developing countries to the impact of climate shocks and disaster.
What is this program that we're actually doing right now?
InsuResilience.
Yes.
Yes. That is it.
InsuResilience Global Partnership. All right, so climate and disaster risk financing and insurance. What are the determinants of the resilience known as the 3 A's?
Adapt, anticipate, and absorb.
Adopt. I think.
Anticipate, absorb, adopt.
Yay! Good job. The incorporation of climate and disaster risk financing and insurance with other risk management approaches. So I said that I touched on it lightly and that we were coming back to it after this game.
Micro insurance scheme.
Climate and disaster risk. What? No, integrated climate and disaster risk management.
Disaster risk management. Yeah.
Good job.
Which is it? All right. Yeah.
Integrated climate and disaster risk management.
Yeah.
This type of financing occurs before an event or hazard.
What is anti-finance?
Very good.
Lord have mercy. Marcy, I leave the rest for you.
There's one more. Risk retention and risk finance relates to this type of financing.
Risk retention and post financing.
Yes.
Okay, ex post finance.
Ex post. All right. So that's good. It sounds like we've been listening and that we've been learning something.
Oh Lord, the stress.
You love this game, Mike.
Interns.
When I hand over to my colleague, let me just check, Victoria.
Yeah.
We're ready to move on to the next section.
Yeah, we're ready to move to the next section, and that would be my colleague Kehinde Balogun, who would be working on integrated climate and risk management.
Okay, all right. Okay, great. So handing over.
Hi, do you have the slides?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
Is it, sorry, I have to switch to, sorry.
No worries.
I forget that I have to stop and start, right.
Great, thank you. And thanks for that game. It was really, I must say, the women were like on fire. Very happy to see that. Yeah, so I will be, you had an introduction about the integrated climate risk management approach, and I will just be providing a more in-depth look into the approach and present a little bit of our findings in the Morocco case study. And this case study was done within the framework of a project called the Advancing Climate Risk Insurance project that was implemented in partnership with GIZ, that's the German Development Agency, and was also funded by the German government. MCI was involved in implementing the approach in 2 countries, and that was in Morocco and in Barbados. In Barbados, we looked into the solar PV sector. But based on the diversity of the participants here, we decided to provide a more, the Morocco case study to give a different approach and also maybe of interest. So what you should expect in this next 10 minutes is a quick short video introducing the integrated approach to you and to see really how an individual could use it for their business. Obviously, you've heard from colleagues about how government could also use it, you know about CRIF. And then I will talk a little bit about the case study in Morocco and Ait Malou, give a little snapshot of some of the gaps we identified and how we saw insurance playing a role. I will particularly just focus on the first 3 phases based on time. Of course, we can discuss a bit more on it, and also maybe just give you 2 or 3 examples on the recommendation we provided based on that, the case study. We particularly looked into the micro, small, and medium enterprises. So the next slide will be about the short video. It's only about 6 minutes, but it should give a bit of a more overview / in-depth understanding. So if you could play the video.
Yeah, I'm getting it now.
Okay.
Is it playing? No? They're not speaking. Sorry. Just 1 minute, I was working.
In the meantime, I could maybe already just talk about the case study, and I will skip that slide when we get there, but maybe to just provide a little bit of overview about Ait Malou is a little state, or no, I would say city in Morocco, and we looked particularly at the risk within the city. It is at the edge of the Atlantic Ocean, so they do have certain risk with regards to, actually they do have a lot of coastal flooding there, as well as the fact that the region is very much focused on providing agri-businesses, and they export a lot of their, Morocco's most agro export comes from that area. And we looked into the industrial production area of the Ait Malou. The production of the agribusiness and also fishery contributes about 40% to the GDP. And based on where they are, there's a lot of heavy rain that leads to flooding. There is, they also, of course, based on Morocco being in the Horn of Africa area, and then in the north, they have a lot of increase in the heat waves. and because it is intensive agro-businesses and fishery process, they also have water stressors. So that's just an overview to tell you what we will talk about after the video. There's no volume. Karen?
Hello?
I couldn't hear it. I'm not sure if others could.
Oh.
No, unfortunately not.
No? Okay.
No.
Perhaps maybe put in the link on the chat box and people could quickly have a watch.
The link?
I could.
Victoria, it seems that we're having some problems playing the video. I was wondering if you guys can pull it up on your side and we can give you permission to share screen.
Yeah, Kehinde, do you think that would work if you share your screen, or because I think there might be an issue with the sound.
That's what I was thinking with regards to maybe putting it in the chat box and people can just take 5 minutes to watch it.
Let me see if this one works, if this way works. Is that better?
No sound though.
No sound.
No sound. Okay. Yeah, so you probably will have to drop it in the chat because I'm not sure.
Okay, I just put it on and then maybe we could just time 6 minutes if everyone could have a watch and then we'll be back after.
Does that sound okay to you, Karen and Richard?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, then each of us individually jumps to YouTube, watches the video, and then we can come back in this webinar forum, and Kehinde will continue with the case study.
Okay.
I don't know if anybody can hear me, but I'm not receiving any audio at all.
Yeah, for some reason when we're trying to play the video for everyone to see, we're not getting audio. So that's why they sent the link, but I was trying one more time to see if I could have done it, but it's not working. Are we ready?
I think everyone should be more or less done now. Should I continue? Or
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes. Great. Great. Yes. Okay. So this is the map I was trying to describe earlier with regards to where we did conducted the study for Morocco, and the medium, micro, small to medium enterprises contribute about 40% of the jobs in the area. And because of the produce and the impact it has on the GDP, the government was interested in looking at how insurance could help mitigate some of their climate risks. Over the past couple of years, they've experienced flooding, and that had caused a couple of damages to, significant damages to buildings, and they've also had an interruption in the supply of agricultural products due to the roads being damaged. There's been a decrease also in the available agriculture and fish products, as well as the fact that there's been so much intense use of water. There's also an increase in water prices within the area. However, with our study, we focused on the flooding area. Next slide, please. And as I mentioned, with that, I would mostly, if you just keep on clicking to show the three. I will focus on the prevent phase, the residual risk, which is also synonymous to retention and transfer. So it's risk retention and risk transfer, as well as the preparedness phase. The preparedness phase obviously is quite important with regards to building the resilience, but all of them are also very important. Next slide, please. So from the case study, by trying to look at how we could provide recommendation to the government and help the enterprises within the region, we had to look within big brother than like just the enterprises. And that means looking at the system in which the enterprise operates. So we did go within the national context and also did some analysis with regards to how, if an insurance product is developed to help the enterprises, where would it actually fit in? And with this, we had a baseline data where we looked at what is actually existing, and that's very important to not duplicate. And this is also why it's important to look at not only the disaster risk management community on ground, but to also look at the climate change adaptation community on ground to bring them together. So in this, we've discovered that the legal and financial frameworks that exist mostly focus on post-disaster action. So, and at the same time, there was no clear responsibility on who is actually doing what of each actors. And that also meant that there were specific gaps in which who actually does the responding. Then left, for example, rebuilding of roads, or who's going to construct or inform the government of certain risks that's been identified in order for the government to actually enact certain policies. And one of the benefit of looking into insurance and trying to figure out what role insurance can play in managing climate risks is really the risk assessment part. Risk assessment from the insurance sector, this is one of the core thing that they really have acquired years of experience in. At the same time, for the climate adaptation community, as well as the disaster risk management community, this is essential to know what is actually on ground, what is missing, and how can we fill the gaps. So in trying to understand that, there is not that much assessment, or actually the prevention measures haven't been properly implemented, so to speak. It also helps to raise awareness if insurance risk assessment is done, because it's been considered, that also helps to raise awareness within the general population about flood risks. Another example that I pulled out was the fact of, for example, I mentioned that in the earlier point, which is we recognize that within the riverbanks, there were a lot of vegetation presence, alien species that were not monitored or, so to speak, managed, which had an impact with regards to overflow of water and drainage system, which further down the line caused flooding for the enterprises. And the specific gap here also relates to the initial, the first baseline data, which was that there has been a lot of studies that has been done on infrastructure and how to prevent flooding. However, there hasn't been implementation. And this goes into who is responsible to actually make sure that the preventative measures that were being recommended are actually implemented. And in thinking about in this gap, particularly the cost benefit analysis, which is done in disaster risk management community, but has a significant benefit for insurance when we are considering the role of insurance within this community. And that's really to make sure what would be the cost of implementing certain preventative measures and what are the benefits, At the same time, what role can insurance play? And the finding here is that when you implement preventative measures to a certain level, you actually use insurance or financial instrument to take off the additional residual risk, the remaining risk, then you actually have an opportunity to reduce premium, which is one of the questions I think was asked about premium cost. When preventative measures are not in place and there's an opportunity to actually implement them, the prices of insurance is significantly increased. So implementing preventative measures is not only just about saving lives, it's also about reducing costs of insurance. I will just jump to the next slide just because I see the time is running out. Thank you. So with this, this is the residual risk phase, the risk retention phase. And we recognize that the insurance sector within Morocco does have a multi-risk insurance product out there, and in order to protect the main cereal crops. However, specific gaps that we identified was there was no coverage for floods, flood damages, or droughts. And with recommendation with regards to core benefits of insurance is realizing this and also motivating for insurance sector within the country to also considering covering flood risks particularly for the enterprises. At the same time, we also identified that there was an absent nationwide compensation and insurance plan to help households that are actually constantly being affected by flooding within the area, particularly the micro enterprises. So, and one of the gaps here is also because that the insurance sector mostly use historical data and do not really so much consider the climatic part of risk, which is more future related. And so the motivation there to make a recommendation to actually provide an insurance for the enterprises was that the consequences of this continuous flooding would actually help to transfer from households, so mostly the micro enterprises to more the small, medium, and the bigger businesses away from, as well as the government, and transfer it to the insurance industry. Next slide, please. And last, just a quick example from the preparedness phase, and what we found that there was a lack of the national flood forecasting and warning system, an effective one. And this is also due to the fact that the meteorological information, the quality and the precision is matching with reality and the increase of risks. And with regards to trying to consider insurance to help, not only that insurance will come in and gather all the data, because most of the time this is actually not private. It is private and maybe not made public. And we recommended having local university research institutes, including NGOs, that could do some research, could be master's students, it could be projects, that implement, that look into developing new models to collect this data, new forecasting system, observation techniques, and this will help in developing an accurate early warning system that could potentially provide evacuation routes, location, as well as help the first responders of disasters, because that's also quite important. That the early response is what really limits the amount of damage to an extent, at least human suffering. With regards to that, there is an existing alert that's been sent, mostly through national TV. However, we have micro, small, medium enterprises that are mostly on the street or working within factories. and this information doesn't reach them on time, so you do have significant impacts. And one of the recommendations that we made was perhaps having a mobile app that's been developed that sends messages from the national authorities straight to this app, so that while you're working either on the street, most of the people have mobile phones, and this warning can go straight and direct to the people. And the benefit of having this, it's not only that you save life, but this can directly link to parametric insurance, which the meteorological information is sent also is known and therefore triggers payments, so that you have early financing that also helps with the response part of the cycle. Next slide, please. And with this, just to give you a quick overview of what the challenges that we found, or just two of them, about engaging with the enterprises within this area, is the fact that they didn't really see the benefit of taking out insurance because of the low frequency of natural disaster, mostly floods. However, they have had impacts of flooding in 2009, 2010, 2012, and 2014. So there is a lack of awareness. There is also a lack of awareness with regards to, apart from response from the government, what actually could they do to prevent or to limit their financial impact, particularly business interruption. And this is where we really talked about with the government to say that apart from international organizations that like MCII that comes in to do projects, to engage the local NGOs. And this is particular NGOs and civil society organization. And in this particularly, it will help to gather information with regards to the needs of the enterprises. And in gathering these needs of the enterprises, you get to put their needs on the table and have discussion with the insurance industry. So an example, particularly that one, Pauletta, I think that's your name. I hope I'm not pronouncing it wrong. She mentioned that she worked with women organizations, and particularly there is a additional vulnerability that women particularly need, and or they have, and therefore their needs might be different. So with regards to local NGOs working within this area, that they have that understanding, it's important to bring them in and really talk to how can the product be designed to cater for, or to at least to ensure that the voices are heard when it comes to marginalized groups. With regards to, you have like, I think I heard someone mention about response agency and water or authority being a part of that. It's important because what you have to bring all of the people together. One of the main things that the SMEs really focused on is the business disruption of flooding on their work. And so they really need the financial buffering of insurance. They need the payment for business continuity. But at the same time, they would rather prefer not to have the constant interruption in place. So this is an aspect that everyone kind of needs to come together and do, considering the solidarity part of insurance, to talk to the different needs to different people and ensure that everyone knows what role they play, what role they contribute to, and in managing the disasters and identifying the particular needs in order for insurance to be particularly developed to address those needs. And also, for me in particular and CII, to unlock to close the gaps that are existing, for example, in the disaster risk management community, as well as climate change adaptation. Next slide, please. And that will be, I think, the last one. The link there, I could share it on the chat box, and it is a toolbox that we developed that does give you a more in-depth guidance about how to use this approach within your own area of work. We particularly looked at the agricultural sector because we are aware that this is mostly what the big sector for developing countries. And it's quite detailed, but we've structured it in a way that it's easy for you to navigate to it. And based on what your area of focus is, you could identify what role you could play or further information in which you could use insurance within your work. So thank you. And if there's any question, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, we'll just take 2 questions because I know we're behind schedule. It seems that your presentation, we have a lot of comments in chat about how clear your presentation is. So that is great.
Thank you.
All right. All right, thank you so much. And we're going to move on to the next session. All right, so I'm going to try to do this as quick as possible. This section is talking about the states of play, what is currently in these 3 countries that respond to climate disaster risk and finance and insurance. So in Antigua, they have 4 frameworks that work for them that are from the government side that ensure that this is being addressed. In Barbados, we found that there was 1 act used to address these issues, while in, sorry, 1 minute. While in Grenada, they had more than the others. They had 5 things. The course, which is a new thing that is coming out of CRIFT, the climate resistant insurance in the Caribbean, which you heard from the MCII, and then also these other 3 things that were from the government with other international bodies. All 3 countries fall under CDEMA, the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, the Caribbean Catastrophe Risk Insurance Facility, and the Caribbean Regional Framework for Achieving Development Resilience to Climate Change, and Caribbean Regional Resilience Building Facility. So how has this been implemented so far? In Antigua, they have a sustainable island resource framework, and they also have civil society groups trying to build the resilience of their beneficiaries. In Barbados, they have the Caribbean Regional Resilience Building Facility, which is aiming to build the long-term resilience of climate-smart growth strategies to design and implement innovative policies and investment initiatives, and the partners are the EU, World Bank, Global Facility for Disaster Reduction and Recovery. For Grenada, they have similar stuff, but also they have the new course, which is the Fisheries Parametric Insurance Policy in Grenada and St. Lucia, and it provides coverage for fisher folks and other players in the fisheries industry to enable them to quickly recover from weather-related events. So it's a similar product to the LPP that we learned about earlier. It's provided by the US State Department instead. Right. So when we look at it in a snapshot, who provides this insurance and the products? In all 3 countries, they have these traditional insurance policies that covers hurricane, earthquakes, landslide, and the government has a policy in CRIFT. Grenada is the only one of the project countries that we're looking at that has the coast livelihood. And from the CRIFT, as we know, it's the first regional multi-country insurance scheme. And they have 13 member governments, and they have made 41 payouts since then. And Barbados, from the project countries that are in this project, Barbados and Antigua have benefited over the years since CRIFT has started. And they have all reported that they received their money quickly after the event to help rebuild as soon as possible for their people. But we also looked at these structures to see if they were holding up to the proper principles and the gender mainstreaming. In Antigua, they said not too much on the proper principles. It was still out to the reach and still not necessarily helping the vulnerable communities. However, they did give them a passing grade for gender mainstreaming. For Barbados, we said, no, definitely not holding up to the proper principles, which is basically what you all said in this round table as well. These things where the vulnerable groups aren't getting access and these issues. And for gender mainstreaming, we went neutral on that as well, because we weren't sure how we see that gender is there, but we're not sure that it's mainstream. It looks like an add-on. And then for Grenada, the 4-point gave for both of them that they were not meeting the requirements of the InsuResilience principles. So who are the key stakeholders? We talked about this already. We want the government ministries, we want the ministries and the agencies, and as well as the insurance agencies, and as well the credit unions too. So for the civil society involvement, when we did the analysis, we found that the level of influence was existing, but not really there. So they might invite us to a meeting, but what we say isn't included. So it's between non-existent and existing but limited. The level of policy participation was deemed as low. It was said that this is a fairly new concept to the CSOs in the Caribbean, especially those who have not worked in disaster risk management area. There's a need for more education and more inclusions and a free flow of information from the government and private sector to the CSOs, and in turn from the CSOs to the government and the private sector. The engagement and exchange of structures to work need to be stronger to include the voices of the people, and that's what we're trying to do. So we're trying to capture all these voices to ensure that next time we do our analysis, we can see that the civil society voice has been heard. So that brings us to the final session, but definitely not the least important session. How are we going to work on this topic? Right? So we have, what are the issues that we see regard to climate risk and CDRFI in the Caribbean? How are these issues going to be addressed, and what is going to be our role in it? I am going to put you all into breakout rooms one more time.
Is this Caribbean, Karen, or Barbados?
This is Barbados.
Okay.
Right? This is Barbados, and I want to add one more question to it. What would be the next topic that you want to have discussed in the consultation? Because as we said, this is just the first consultation, and we're going to have other consultations after this. All right, so I've shuffled the room a bit because some people left, and I'm going to give you all the 10 minutes. Is okay for you all?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'll put the questions in a broadcast. Okay, thank you. Hi, are we all back? Hi. Yeah.
Hello.
Okay. All right. So I think we end up with 3 breakout rooms. We're going to go with the one with Christian and Troy and Sophia and Oren first.
I spoke last time. I'll leave it for one of the others to speak this time.
Christian, you want to go ahead?
So basically, we weren't finished our discussion, but the discussion went down the road of speaking about drought issues faced in Barbados and how we could remedy these issues. We spoke about breakage water and dissemination plants and the different expenses that would be incurred trying to remedy these issues, and also conserving water as a country.
Okay.
Anything.
And no thoughts on a future topic?
No, we didn't get there. Sorry.
Okay. All right, no problem. So breakout room 2 would be Arabella, Brian Lee, Monica, and Victoria.
Okay, hi, this is Monica, and I invite the team to jump in. So I'll try to recap our conversation. As to the first question, what issues do we see with regard to climate risk and the CDRFI in the Caribbean? What we recognize is that we live in a region where any and everything could happen to us. And the analogy that I gave was we're almost like sitting ducks. Any and everything does happen. It just depends on our location and the impact and the intensity of that. So we look at the CDRFI as perhaps mechanisms to help organizations to develop themselves further. And we took it in terms of preparation, planning what's happening or what happens during, and then planning as we come out of it. And then as we continue on, that continuous planning, how could these issues be addressed? Well, we thought about trade, welcoming or enhancing access to other countries through trade that would help us rebound quickly. We're looking at new ways of doing business and attracting new businesses to the region. And what could be our roles in addressing these issues? Change agents, not doing things that they have been done in the past, but sort of being fluid where depending on what's happening, we can be agile and adapt processes, realizing that we can't control government, but we can work with CPDC in that particular corner. But we're being agile enough to respond to the market as it comes and to change our own processes as we move further. So with that, I'll pause here and just ask any of my other team members if they wanted to elaborate a little bit further. Thank you.
All right, so this is Brian Lee Chandler. So I would add just to what my colleague said with regards to market access with farmers, particularly and MSMEs. These institutions like the CDRFI and CPDC are very important so that we can maintain the level of integrity and quality, consistency when trying to maintain market presence in the European markets, US markets, and so forth. And I think going forward, this should be the new way in terms of giving that type of support so that businesses can, first of all, adapt, survive, and grow, which is a great initiative, right? Okay. That is all I have to say.
All right, thank you so much. So breakout room 1.
Hi, it's Paulette here. So I'll be speaking on behalf of my group. Some of the issues we were discussing, we were examining in terms of climate change and the climate risk, and one of them was we examined the increased intensities of hurricanes. And I know in the previous presentations, it was mentioned that countries, you get a payout based on how you have to recover, and it can be measured by the strength of the wind. And I mean, I would probably need to answer this separately, but then we were discussing, like, so if we understand that climate change has now increased hurricanes to a point where we're seeing superstorms yearly rather than every once in a while. And some countries within the region are constantly being hit and they have a hard time recovering because of this. So if there is an idea of a payout maybe once and then they're hit another year and they don't get paid again, what are the issues being done there? I mean, sorry, how are we going to help those people? Because we understand most of the time it is the marginalized people who cannot have access to acquire the better materials to recover, and even their crops and whatnot. And so we also thought that in terms of Barbados, we have been extremely lucky and we haven't faced these atrocities like Grenada or Bahamas. So maybe our climate risks are different, and therefore the policies may need to be tailor-made in terms of who and what aspects you're helping, or what the focus may be. It's not to say that Barbados is never going to get hit by a hurricane, but maybe our focus right now is on the impending drought that we're suffering versus the loom of Category 5. So how are we tailor-making these policies to help individual countries, which also may be mentioned. Then we talked about how we said our biggest issue too was that we felt that the population wasn't adequately educated, which is obviously at a governmental level, that sometimes it's just a televised emergency just before hurricane season, and maybe there can be better education to help the population or how they can adequately prepare infrastructurally and medically. And we talked about in terms of the issues being addressed, tailor-make the policies. And finally, what could be our role? We feel that the partners with the CSOs can be adequately educated, because it's an idea like you don't want to save your complex. We want people who meet on the ground, who understand what is actually happening and how they can work together for that particular environment and move forward.
Thank you so much. And I think that is really robust discussions that was happening in the breakout room, and I'm really happy for that. I think what I'm going to do is create a small survey so that we could just gauge I know one of the issues you'll definitely want to hear more about is how CRIF works and how the micro insurance works. But in case there's any other topics that y'all want to discuss under this topic, I'll create a short survey for that. At this time, I just want to share something else that we are currently doing on the issue. On our website, we have a Risk Resilience Project Hub, and it will give you a brief overview of the project and as well the partners and the library. It is now being built, so it is not as full as we would have wanted it to be, but definitely y'all can check it out. It would have videos and booklets, reports, sorry, I was looking for the word reports, that you could use to learn more about this topic. Is there any other questions that y'all want to raise before we close?
Did we hear what the next topic for consultation? Was there any suggestion?
No, there wasn't. So I said I would create a link and that we would be able to vote or give feedback on the link. And I would send that to you and then you will send it to the participants.
Okay, I didn't hear
that,
sorry.
So okay. we can, because
the micro insurance scheme.
Yeah, we said that it came out from the consultation so far that we want to learn more about the microinsurance and more about CRIF. But to find out what are the other topics under this thematic area that needs to be explored in consultations, I'll still create a no long complicated survey just for you all to provide feedback. And I will send that to Marcia as soon as possible, and she will send it out to you all.
Sounds good.
If there are no more questions, I really want to thank you for your time, and it has been a very interesting and a very vibrant conversation, and I thank you for spending the morning with me. I'm greatly honored, and we will be in touch. And thank you again, Marcia, for your hard work, and Victoria and the MCI team.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you too. It's been a pleasure, really. Have a good rest of the day.
Very informative presentation.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you. It was very informative.